Welcome and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to go over fashioning a great lab with the correct lab fabric. My name's Corey Gibson. I'm a customer success manager and I will help guide you through today what a lab fabric is, our different lab fabrics, some of the use cases, and I'll show you sort of what they look like on our platform and how to kind of design these lab fabrics for yourself. So first, let's go over what is a lab fabric. Lab fabric is a platform for hosting a virtual environment, whether it be virtual machines, a cloud portal like Azure, or containers. Virtualization platform options are our lab fabrics. So I want you to hear the word virtualization platform and lab fabric and make those two synonymous with one another. In Lab on Demand, it will refer to it as a virtualization platform, but you will often hear it referred to as a lab fabric. The first two lab fabrics that I'm going to go over are Hyper-V and vSphere. These are our virtualization options. These are just your all-up virtual machine. This is a great alternative to a cloud-hosted virtual machine. It'll often be much cheaper to host your Hyper-V or vSphere virtual machines in our Lab on Demand data centers that we have around the world in both North America and EMEA, and it'll often help in providing a more efficient virtual machine given to the consumer. You can perform nested virtualization in our virtual machines, automatic screen scaling, and if you have virtual machine images on your local storage, it's easy to get them into the LOD storage so you can start using them in Lab on Demand. Our next two are our cloud options, Azure and AWS. We can use those in a standalone web UI version, so it'll launch the user straight into the web portal if you don't need a virtual machine, so a non-virtualization option would be really good here. You can also use them in conjunction with Hyper-V or vSphere virtual machines, which is called like a hybrid fabric. And then next we have our Docker containers and code labs. I put these two together because Docker containers are sort of what power our code labs, and we'll go into those a little bit more. Our Cloud Slice options are referring to those Azure AWS lab fabrics. Without a VM, we do a thing called Cloud Slice, which is how we sort of slice up different little pieces of your subscription for your users to consume with. So you have a couple options here. You can do the none or the open fabric, the Microsoft Azure, or Amazon Web Services. Open fabric is where you would just launch into your own cloud software as a service, if you will, with some back-end. All of these will need some back-end scripting. If it's your own cloud, you'll have to bring your scripts with you to slice that up. But Microsoft, Azure, and Amazon Web Services are both cloud sliceable. Slightly different ways, but the concept is the same. One subscription for many. When you use Docker, you can either run it straight through Lab on Demand and set all your stuff up there, or if you've already got a registry in Docker, you can reference that through Lab on Demand and make changes to your local registry. All right, let's take a look at some of these. First, we're going to go over a little sneak peek there. So from your site administration page, you're going to click Create Lab Profile. When you click that Create Lab Profile, you're going to be launched into our template gallery, and this is going to have all of our pre-configured lab profiles that you can make your own. You can just grab these and start creating your own environment. Down at the bottom here, we have where you can sort them by lab fabric. So this is a great place to start if you've never been here, but you know the fabric you want to work in. You can filter these down by fabric if you would like, and then you simply select create and fill in the information here. I've already created a few for us, so we're going to look into those. The first one is just an all-up vSphere Hyper-V. This one happens to be Hyper-V. There's not a lot of difference. Again, not a lot of performance difference. The advantages are the same: lower cost, nested virtualization, automatic screen scaling. You can easily migrate your images. So if you've already got virtual machine images that you're using, you can just migrate them into the LOD storage. The next one I have here is our cloud setup. So this is if you were to create an all-up, just I don't need a virtual machine. I just need to launch my user into the Azure web portal with a subscription. You'll notice here the instructions are in the instruction spot, and on the resource page, you'll have these subscription username, password. And what I have done here is I've set an access control policy to limit what the users are able to provision. But I wanted to provision a storage account for them, so I went ahead and put a resource template on the profile page, and I'll show you how to do this in a minute, that provides this storage account for the user. So if I go to my all resources, you can see real quick here that they already have the storage account. So to demonstrate this, I'll go to my Cloud Lab. From the lab profile page, you go ahead and edit, and on the Cloud tab, you're going to have your cloud platform, Azure AWS. In this case, we're using Azure, but don't forget AWS is an option. Subscription pool, you set your pool here, your deployment failure, and this will all go into much greater depth when you go through any kind of trade. If you have any questions, reach out to your AE or AM, and we'll get you sorted. So data center availability, East US, you set your user accounts, your resource groups, permissions. Now this is where everything really kind of happens. So I've decided I wanted that storage account to come up, and I've decided that I'm going to put an access control policy to limit what they can do with this subscription. So with this particular account, I've limited it to only that storage account, a network, and some SQL servers. So if they were to try to, say, create a Kubernetes cluster, it would deny them. And it's important to note that you have to put a control policy on any cloud lab that you have. You're not allowed to have a cloud lab out there without a control policy. That's for security, and that helps mitigate misuse, and it helps make sure that we're controlling the costs. Because if you had something out there without a policy, it could just run forever. You know, someone could create something incredibly expensive, run forever, and that'll put you to the wall. The next thing we're going to look at is our container lab, which is very simple. It's just that. It's a container lab. It brings you straight into your, this happens to be a Kali container. So this brings us straight into our Kali container, and you can see that you can deploy, if you don't need like a full up virtual machine, this is a very lightweight option. All right. So don't forget that if you want to learn more about fabrics, go to our docs and choose Lab Fabric, and you can kind of get a little heads up and a little bit more in-depth information. If you have any questions, again, please reach out. We're here for you, and I thank you for joining us today.